Hello, this is my peaking guide for Valorant. It's my episode 4 of my beginner's guide. So we're going to go over something different first, other than peaking. And we will be going over some gun specific stuff as well. But right now, we're going to go over some holding stuff because it's very important that when you're peaking stuff, that you also are aware of like how to hold stuff as well, how the enemy's going to hold stuff. So if I'm going to peek, or sorry, if I'm going to hold, B main from a deep angle, right? Like say I'm playing Jet, right? I can dash away after I hold this, right? So I'm going to hold this in a way where I'm going to be able to get the kill first and shoot first, obviously. Well, that's what you want to do. So I won't be having my crosshair on this line, right? On this corner. The reason being is because I need to account for the fact that I have a reaction time and the fact that I will chance as well. Like you can kind of react, take into account that you have ping as well, but mainly it's to do with reaction time. So I have a reaction time. So therefore, I don't shoot instantly as soon as I see something. So I need to take into account that I need to put my crosshair to the right a bit more of the corner. Also on top of that as well, I don't want to be looking at my crosshair when I'm holding an angle, because if I do that, then I'm going to start reacting when they cross this line where my crosshair is, instead of when they cross this line where the corner is. And they will start reacting when you peek something. You actually are just looking at the angle most of the time, right? So they will react when they see you around this corner, but you will start reacting way after them because you're looking at your crosshair, right? So you want to make sure you're looking at this, right? So when you're looking at this, that should be able to just run into your crosshair when you're shooting, right? If you get this if you get this right and you kind of understand when you react, like your reaction time and things like that, you get more muscle memory for it. Then you'll start shooting people like perfectly when they come around corners on the holds. Because they just run straight into your crosshair and your reaction time lines up with it. Okay, so then we're going to go over peeking. So we're going to go over some very basic stuff with peeking, and then we'll go over some gun specific stuff because this game doesn't have like one way to peek everything, because it's based on what gun you're using, what gun they're using, and the distance of the engagement. So and obviously the distance of the engagement is something that you want to be trying to control when you're using a certain gun. So we'll go over that as well. But first I want to make sure that we're peeking things correctly. So say if I want to peek this angle, and as you can already see, like I don't want to be so we went over this on my movement guide, and actually went over my shooting guide, I think, with counter strafing, where we don't want to be using our W key or an S key to peek anything, right? Our S key, we're going to move backwards like this. No, we don't want to be using our W key basically at all when taking fights. We're going to be using A and D the most. So therefore it's not very logical to like follow the close angle here as we see stuff like you were doing like single player games. When you're playing like I don't know, random single player games, you might just do like this, like cinematic type camera, where you're kind of following like the view of the world. You don't really want to like you're trying to get like cinematic angles. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to be already aiming at the wall, and using your A key to, or like in this situation it's A, but using your movement keys to the side, left and right, to get the movement. So this will make you a lot harder to hit, as we went over with the counter strafing guide. And on top of that as well, you can pre-aim the angle a lot easier than if you're trying to use W to pick the angle as well. Very, very hard. You can do like diagonals, but actually I can't even do it properly. But with A and D, you're able to pick the angle perfectly if pre-aiming it. There is also pre-aim lineups which you can go find. There's actually one on Ascent A, I don't actually know it, but there's one that you can like basically line yourself up perfectly to peek this as a headshot every time. I'll have to find it, but I'm sure you can find it on the internet somewhere. And then okay, so we're gonna go over all the all the guns, and like what their strengths are. We're gonna start off with the classic. So the classic has really good mobility. So you want to be moving a lot and shooting. It's really good close range. Well, you make sure you're always taking like close to medium range fights. You never want to be taking long range fights with the classic, especially even on pistol, where probably going to be playing against ghosts and you're going to be playing against sheriffs. So you don't really mainly ghosts, but you don't really want to be playing and taking medium range fights. Most of the time you would be taking short range fights when they run into you, or if you know someone's like stuck in a corner or something. Sometimes you can do some jumping bursts around the corner, or you can just do normal jumping or not jumping, but just running and left clicking. That's when the classic kind of excels. at mobility and that sort of stuff. But it's very possible to just like get some like medium range kills with counter strafing with the classic. But bear in mind, it does have really bad accuracy, as you can see by this spread here. It's not particularly great, especially long range. The shorty is also very similar to the classic, where you want to be very close range. You want to make sure you're really close range with the shorty. And when you're taking fights, you want to be crouched because they're going to pre-aim you, pre-aim above you. And then in that time where they have to correct their aim, you should be able to get a shot off with the shorty. In some cases, in some ranges, that will kill. In some other cases, it won't, and then you'll need to take a second shot. So when you take the first shot, you want to make sure you get up for the second shot and keep moving. So you want to be like this. This will make you a lot harder to kill. Second one is the frenzy. Make sure with all shotguns, every single shotgun I go over, you don't want to be taking any long range fights. Medium range fights as well, no, and pretty much never. Medium range fights do have some certain circumstances with the bookie and with the judge, but most of the time you want to be trying to avoid those fights as much as possible because they always excel in the short range. Frenzy is very much like a full auto version of the classic. You want to be, it's a bit closer range than the classic, so you do want to be obviously a bit closer range, like around 15ish meters. It's full auto, so it's a lot more lethal than the classic at close range and a lot more consistent than the burst. Is the most important thing to note, that it's more consistent than the burst overall. But it does have the option to, like, if you are particularly well practiced with the frenzy, you can get like some double taps and some triple taps at like decent ranges, but it's very, very hard and very inconsistent. It has a lot of shot error at like super long ranges. It's very, very noticeable at super long ranges. It also doesn't reset its spray very fast, so you have to like wait a very long time to get like one tap burst in. You can see how long you have to wait. You probably get a bit faster than that, but yeah, that's it. That's probably about as fast as it goes. Actually, that's about that's about as fast as it goes. But as you can see, like its spread is going all over the place anyway, so it's kind of inconsistent to just tap burst with this thing. So you want to be close range, looking for close range fights that you're able to move around in a lot, make you a lot harder to kill. Against a shorty as well, like you don't want to be too close range because that is actually like potential to be against a shorty. But against pretty much every other gun, the frenzy is looking for the exact same fight. So the ghost is looking for sort of medium range fights. You can do some short range fights, but generally you don't want to look for them because you are going to be against, especially in pistols, right? You're going to be against classics, going to be against frenzies, maybe even shorty. So you don't want to be ever looking for short range fights. It definitely excels in the same range that the sheriff does. So generally, it'll aim before. It can basically, it's like a 50-50, but I think the ghost is definitely better than the sheriff. The reason being is that it has like the same sort of reasoning as the Phantom and versus the Vandal for me, where I feel like if you can land the two bullet headshot as opposed to the one, then you should be playing with this as for its more benefits. So it has, first of all, 9 more bullets than the sheriff, and generally you can be more mobile with it. You can do a lot more things with it. It's a lot stronger at closer ranges. You can do some running and shooting, and also it beats the sheriff at past 45 meters. And the reason why it beats the sheriff past 45 meters is that, well, it doesn't really beat it necessarily. It just means that it kind of like is a bit harder to use past 45 meters, the ghost is, but it can still be just as lethal if you're a good enough player at past 45 meters. And I actually think overall it's better than the sheriff past 45 meters. But generally you want to be taking medium range fights with the ghost, and you want to make sure you are putting an emphasis on counter strafing because it's not very good to run and shoot too much with the ghost. It can work at super close range. In fact, with most guns, you want to be running and shooting at close range. Maybe not the operator, but everything else. You want to be like running and shooting with. But with the ghost, you want to be making sure you're counter strafing a lot. With the sheriff, you want to be counter strafing a lot as well. But generally, we're taking medium fights. You want to be making sure that the fights you take are below 45 meters most of the time. If you are like forced to take one past that point on certain like maps, where you need to fight someone past that time and you can't really choose that fight, then you're gonna have to. But I say with basically every gun, to be honest. But generally, you want to be looking for fights that are below 45 meters. You want to be counter strafing a lot, because this gun excels a lot. Below 45 meters, you don't be taking close range fights. Bear in mind, in pistols, right, you're gonna be against frenzy, you're gonna be against shorty, you're gonna be against classic, even the ghost are gonna outperform you at super close range unless you're very, very accurate. This gun is also really good like when you can hold as well, because one bullet headshot can insta kill people that come around the corner, as opposed to some guns that don't have that. So then we go for the Stinger. So the Stinger is pretty mobile. You want to be basically always running and shooting with the Stinger. Pretty much never want to be standing still and shooting with the Stinger. The only exception to this is if you have to take like a medium-ish fight. You shouldn't be looking for these medium fights, but if you have to, then you can like do some crouch, not really spraying, but crouch bursting with the Stinger. Or you can be like counter strafing with the Stinger as well. It can make you a bit harder to hit. But generally, the Stinger always plays the same way. You want short range fights as much as possible. Any other fight is going to be hard for you. Next, we're going to go on the Spectre. Spectre is pretty much the exact same as a Stinger. You want to be looking for the short range fight that you can run around in. When you're against a Vandal or Phantom or like better guns, Operator, etc., etc. When you're against Eco, which is different for the Stinger isn't too fussed, 100%. Like it will outperform like shorties obviously and classics and things at a medium range slightly. But even then, actually, I don't think it even outperforms the classic at medium range. It has to be very close still, and you have to be and you should always play mobile with the Stinger. But the Spectre wants to play. It can play a bit more medium range. It has a bit more of accuracy on its side, and it can play a bit more medium. And can beat classics medium range. Has a lot more of an advantage at medium range than the Stinger does. Also, something not many people know about the Spectre is that it has a really accurate triple tap with when aimed in, which will kill at this range.
Here.
So you want to make sure like you can actually beat ecos really easily with the triple tap here. Would never do this versus like Vandals or Spectres, not Spectres, Vandals, Phantoms, or like Operators and things. Never do that. Always versus eco. But versus like Vandals and Phantoms, you want to be playing very much like the Stinger. Running and shooting, being very annoying, hard to kill, slippery across around the corners, things like this, right? Going to be very, very annoying to deal with, and very hard to shoot. The Bucky, you want to be kind of posted very close to angles so you can one-pump people. If you have to get like multiple kills, the Bucky kind of sucks, and because it has to do its pump action. So you want to make sure like you're mobile during the pump action. So you want to shoot, once again, crouched, because they're going to pre-aim just above you. And in that space of time that they have to adjust, you should be able to shoot. And then you should be able to shoot and then move while the pump action is going on. And you want to try and get back into like this area, then do it again to the next person, things like that. You can also do with the Bucky as well. You can have an infinite clip essentially with the Bucky, because you can keep reloading between the shots. However, not particularly important for the Bucky. It's more important for the Marshal, which we'll go over as well. But essentially with the Bucky, is probably you never really want to take right click fights. The one time you can is if you're against like lower boys. I wouldn't recommend doing this versus Phantom or Vandal or Operator, or Woden or anything like that, right? Anything that has like a medium sort of range, even Sheriff or Ghost. You can do stuff like this that make you like hard to, like it can give you more pressure basically. But I wouldn't recommend 100% doing it, especially if it's the first time they're going to see the Bucky. Usually the Bucky has a lot more to benefit when they're surprised by it. So you want to be very much like in a close angle like this, in a smoke like this, waiting for someone to like walk in so you can get a free kill and get out. And then you can set up again past when you've like done with the pump action. You can maybe get another kill in a different area, in another place. The Judge, however, doesn't really have as much of a problem dealing with multiple players. It definitely wants to benefit. It definitely benefits from separating the 1v1s up, like every gun does in the game. But it can deal with the groups of people more easily that are trying to like trade the person. So if you can play exactly the same as the Bucky, but then you can like smoke and try and this is like kind of like jet stuff. But at the same time, like if there's probably going to be a smoke in this entranceway if I'm doing it for B short or like B main, then I can be a bit more proactive. And I can start like shooting into the smoke and being fairly like proactive with the Judge, which the Bucky doesn't really have that option as much because of the pump action. It can make it quite susceptible to getting like rushed and things like that. Funnily enough, a shotgun that can get rushed, but you can get the Bucky can definitely get traded if they're fast, if you're fast enough. And it's not particularly hard to be fast enough. I'd say that the Judge actually does outperform the Bucky at close, at like medium ranges, or like just like it wouldn't really call this medium, would it? It's like kind of like the 13 to like 15 type meters, 10 to 15 meters type area. The Judge actually beats the Bucky unless if there's like cover, then the Bucky has a decent chance still. Like I was showing with the Bucky right click. But the judge overall does beat you. Does beat out the bookie if they can like move around and shoot. They always don't be afraid to move around and shoot with the shotguns. The shotguns basically have no shooting error, to the point where they still kill things at close range. Because the bullets aren't just going to evaporate, right? They're still there, so you can still move around. The shooting error is not too bad. And, you know, super close range, I think I've already said this, but super close range, like 3 meters away from you, you're going to be running and shooting with, like, every gun. Doesn't really matter what it is. Maybe operator you won't be, but everything else you'd probably be running and shooting. So with the Bulldog has, like, 2 modes. So the first mode is to be, like, kind of slippery, very similar to, like, how I would see the Bucky right-click, where you can kind of use its slow shooting speed and fast recovery time to counter-strafe these corners really nicely. Try and get some like wall bangs through here. Light wall bangs kind of thing. And you can be very slippery. This is kind of like how I would play against like maybe an eco, or maybe I'll just full swing with the eco. However, versus like vandals and things, or like operators and stuff, you can play like posted. I mean, you can do kind of, honestly, it kind of works both ways. The operator as well would kind of suck versus this. Because if you're playing a bit slippery, it has force to take the shot and then you can start moving on it, you know. But at the same time, it probably wouldn't be like 90 meters away from you. If the enemy player was actually good. Maybe they would be if they were good, actually. Think about it. Be very confident. But generally, when you're aiming in with the Bulldog, you want to be playing similar to an operator where you want to be posted. You're not very particularly mobile, so you never really want to run and shoot. But you are fairly pinpoint accurate with the burst, so you can get really nice kills when they run into your crosshair. Making sure like we are looking at the wall, or the corner, like I said before. And you should be able to get some nice kills. It's fairly immobile gun overall, but it does have its options when you're not aiming in. Generally the burst is pretty good and underrated, I think. So the Guardian as well is very similar to the Bulldog, pretty much exactly the same, where you can play sort of slippery when the one not aiming in, and you can kind of get these wall bangs. You can get way more wall bangs with the Guardian than you could with the Bulldog, and you can be very annoying to deal with. Especially if like they've got like if do this versus like Vandals and Phantoms, like it can be quite annoying, but they can catch you out. Same with the operator and things as well. So I would do it versus Eco, this sort of version, but against like Vandals, Phantoms, operators and things, you want to be posted, waiting for them to go into your crosshair, and then you can use this to one-tap them. This is 100% accurate, by the way, pinpoint accurate. It does not have any shooting error at all, so the aim in is really strong on the Guardian. Aiming in general is honestly underrated overall. I think people don't realize how broken it actually can be. But I also think, like, yeah, I mean, you can get kills not aiming in too, so. But I think aiming in is underrated. It definitely will allow people to get more long-range kills than they realize. The Phantom is next. So the Phantom, you want to be taking about 12-meter engagements, which is where you'll get one-taps. On defense, that's what you want to choose most of the time. Unless you're against an eco. If you're against an eco, then you want to be staying very clear of them. So you want to be very far back, so you don't get caught off by shorties, bookies, ghosts, and things like that. Even the ghost can like potentially kill you medium range. But you do want to be playing it like the medium ranges to long ranges with the Phantom against eco. But against like normal gun range, you want to be playing within this 12-meter range, and peeking within the 12-meter ranges and things like that, right?
Here.
20 meters, but still completely fine swing. The Vandal is a bit more long range, and very similar to the Sheriff and the Ghost, where I feel like the Vandal allows you to kind of be a bit worse overall mechanically and still get away with like some one-tap headshots and things. So for instance, like you need to have good first bullet accuracy with the Vandal. But with the Phantom, you need good first bullet accuracy, and you need good second bullet accuracy, and maybe even third bullet accuracy, depending on like the range. So you need to actually have good overall accuracy of the Phantom, but with the Vandal, you can get away with like first and maybe second bullet accuracy, right? And I think overall, the Phantom has more benefits than the Vandal does. The Vandal's one benefit over the Phantom is it doesn't have a drop-off range. So you can take super long-range fights and still one-tap at any range. But the Phantom has like no tracers, better spread of bullets, it has tighter spread of bullets, and just overall just way better gun. Even the Phantom can do running and shooting at close range when the Vandal really can't. Vandal can, but it's nowhere near as strong. Once again, like the tighter spread is so much better on the Phantom. Phantom has faster firing speed as well, makes it better in those situations too. It's just overall, Phantom's way stronger than the Vandal. Vandal only has that one benefit. So against ecos and against Vandal, basically against everyone, you want to be over 45 meters as much as possible. Aside from the operator, which has the one benefit of you, that has that over you slightly. It's way longer range, and you never want to be peeking into the operator. But once the operator shoots, that's when you'll want to post on the angle, because they have to re-peek you, and the operator, I'll go for it, is incredibly immobile, so you can catch them out really nicely. Then we go with the Marshal. So the Marshal is like a medium to long range sort of thing too. You don't want to be too far away because it doesn't have the double zoom, but that's like fairly niche for like operator players, I guess. The double zoom can make it a bit hard, like on Breeze, for instance. It can make it really hard to like see everything, but like to see like them see like things in detail, I guess. Maybe I've just got old man eyes or something. But this gun is like pretty good against ecos, and you pretty much only really see it if like you're on defense and they didn't plant the bomb, so therefore they're probably not going to buy half armor. So then you can body shot, one shot them. That's the majority of the time. And then the next round you're going to be against Vandals and Phantoms, so you're going to have to be like a bit more creative with the angles. You need to be holding angles pretty nicely, and then you can afford to be a bit more mobile. The Marshal overall is decently mobile. You can run around and no scope a bit as well. It is fairly accurate, so you can be fairly aggressive with it if you need to be, especially like on a jet. You can see it being fairly aggressive, especially because if you know you're against like an operator and a Vandal, like you probably want to get in there into their face a bit more, because they're going to have a bit more of a struggle than you are. The Vandal might not, because it is full auto and you're not. So you have to kind of find the right circumstance versus the Vandal. Versus the operator, if you're close range, you'll beat it every time, or most of the time. So with the operator, you want to be posted most of the time at long ranges. It does not do very well at close range, because to get an accurate shot, you have to be like aimed in. As you can see, even though I'm standing still, if I don't aim in, the shot's not accurate. So I have to be aimed in most of the time, which lowers my field of vision. It makes it very much a lot harder to maneuver. So you need to be able to not take fights close range if you can help it as much as possible. And as a result as well, you want to be taking like super long range fights all the time. If possible, medium range fights you can get away with as well. You want to be trying to play over the 45 meter mark versus ecos as well, because the Sheriff should not have any one-tap potential on you there. So over 45 meter fights is like really important against ecos for the operator. Although most of the time you shouldn't be. I mean, you probably, if you like smashing the enemy team, they will have to eco versus an operator at some point probably. So it will be infrequent, but it won't be always. Like on the first eco, you're probably not going to be having you won't have an operator. So you might do if you save free, I guess. One other thing with the operator is that you don't really want to be re-peeking angles as much, because as you can see with the white dot on my screen, it actually takes a lot longer for it to be accurate than other guns. So with the Vandal, I would be able to shoot about 0.25 seconds faster than the operator. Maybe not 0.25 seconds, that's maybe too much. Maybe 0.15 seconds. It's very slow compared to the other guns. So if they are posted and looking at you while you swing, you're gonna shoot last. So you don't want to be swinging with the Vandal. With the operator, it's very immobile. You want to be making sure you're posted on off angles, on angles, just making sure that you can get an advantageous fight. You also may see a lot of operator players play really close to the wall like this, and this is just so if someone jump peeks, they can kind of get like a wall bang. Or some players, like really good players, really good players can actually get like pixel perfect like body shots off the jump peak. Usually it's a mistake of the jump peekers, but sometimes it can just be a really good shot. But I wouldn't recommend trying to do those type of things, because that's like really difficult to do. You have to be very good mechanically to do. It's very hard to replicate. Then we go onto the Ares. The Ares is a medium range weapon, but its main purpose is to penetrate surfaces, where you can kind of be a bit more slippery. It's not very mobile, so it's less mobile than the Guardian. Even counter strafing with this gun is bad, because it just doesn't have like the first bullet accuracy. It just has barely any accuracy to it. So you don't want to be counter strafing. You want to be basically crouched and aimed in most of the time when you're using this gun. And generally you want to be spraying through surfaces the most, as much as possible with this gun. Funnily enough, this is not really the same as the Odin. Though the Odin, funnily enough, is very weird and overloaded type gun. Has its ways to play. It's very similar to an operator in that you want to post, like similar to the Ares as well. You want to post and aim in, but it can play the way like the Ares does. So it can do this. So it can go through surfaces like this. But it can also you can also excel at like running and shooting at like not even close range, like sometimes like 10 to 12 meters. You can actually running and shoot people because the sheer amount of bullets you have, and it's actually a tight enough spread to kind of get people from 100 to 0 pretty fast. So you can actually run and shoot at super close range with the Odin. I think the Ares does struggle with it, but I haven't really tested the Ares a huge amount with it, so I could be wrong on the running and shooting with it. But as you can see, like, it's not particularly great spread. Like, and especially because it's also combined with the low damage, it probably doesn't help it as well. One other thing with the Odin that I want to show is that with the Odin, you want to make sure that you're aiming in majority of the time, and with the Ares too. So with the Ares, you can see it has a spray pattern when I'm not aiming in. But when I aim in, you can see, like, even though there is a lot more recoil, there is still a lot of recoil. The actual impacts are very, very close to where I was actually aiming in at the time. So if you go to the Odin, it's a very similar story where if I'm not aiming in, the bullets are always going to go like firing up. But if I aim in, as you can see, like, they actually follow fairly closely to the aimed in crosshair. So you want to be making sure you're aiming in a lot with the LMGs. And that's pretty much it for the guide. We've gone through every single gun. So I'll see you in the next one.